Rule of Two Review. What's up, guys? Welcome back. First things first, you probably noticed I have a brand new title card for the channel, which is really exciting. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my best friends. His name is Jeff. He is the artist responsible for that badass drawing of me with that Samus arm cannon. That was super amazing of him to do. He's a professional artist. He does that for a living. And I asked him to do kind of a quick sort of sketch thing, and he turned it into something way more badass than I ever could have envisioned. Of course, it also comes right on the heels of me shaving my head down, the shortest it's ever been, so I look a little bit different than in that picture, but whatever, it's still me. I still look amazing with that arm canning, so thank you to my buddy Jeff. I asked him if he wanted me to sort of promote him or even offer his services to anyone else who might want him to do some art for them, and he was kind of like, yes, maybe, you know, he's really busy, but I would say, if anyone is curious, feel free to contact me via Twitter, and if you have an idea and you want me to ask him and see if he's willing to be commissioned to do something for a little bit of cash, then you can let me know. I'll talk to him, and if he's up for it, then that's fine, and if not, no big deal, but I thought it was pretty cool, so it's really cool to have a brand new sort of intro, real quick, short, 4-second little dealio, and I'm really proud of how that turned out, so again, thanks to my man Jeff. Moving on to today's topic, we're going to be doing another Rob Theories. Now, I haven't done a Rob Theory video in quite a while. There's been a lot of different topics that I wanted to discuss, you know, the broader topics in the gaming world at hand, and I really wasn't quite sure which one made the most sense to do, but given the last month's worth of news and rumors and speculation and all these happenings, I figured that this was a pretty important topic to discuss, and I have a couple ideas that I wanted to kind of go over with you guys. Pose this question to you, of course, because that's the big part of the Rob Theories, and especially today's topic is, what do you guys think of this? This is very opinionated, and then also share my opinion on it. And again, it is just that, my opinion. So what I'm discussing today is, again, the Nintendo NX, but I want to discuss the Nintendo NX as it could potentially fit into the grand scheme of the gaming industry. That's kind of the crux of what's happening with the NX. Something that I've been thinking about. I haven't seen a lot of other people talking about it, so I don't know if this is something that other people are concerned with, but I've thought about this myself. When the Nintendo NX launches, which I've been saying for a while, you guys have heard me mention this, that I expected and want the system to launch in 2017. I would like to have Nintendo fully support and acknowledge the Wii U through 2016 into 2017. That's my dream. That's what I think should happen. But man, the more and more details and rumors and everything comes out, granted, nothing is concrete, so we can't say for sure until Nintendo tells us, but I'm really just starting to feel, like a lot of you have already expressed, that the system's going to launch next year. It's going to come out 2016. As far as when, I don't know. I can only hope that it becomes a holiday launch. Talk about it in March or whatever, that's fine. And then launch the thing at the very end of the year, at least. You know, show us that you can have some titles come out for the Wii U in 2016 and make that system still a system that we should care about. The Wii U is amazing. It could have many years worth of life left in it if Nintendo supported it properly, if they promoted it and marketed it properly, and if they worked hard to get some third-party support back on the system. It could have a great life. It's a completely fantastic system, but Nintendo's just not doing anything with it. So we know we're moving on to the NX. It seems very obvious that it's going to launch next year. So much to my chagrin, I can only admit that it seems that that's going to be the case. Excuse me. So with the system very likely launching next year, if the system launches next year, what I've been curious about and what the question I want to pose today is, will it be considered a 9th generation console? How will the Nintendo NX define both this current generation of the 8th generation and whatever generations we lead into going next? I think that's kind of a very unique scenario we're looking at. This would be, I would have to think, fairly unprecedented for a system to have such a short life cycle and to have one of the companies, the console manufacturers within any given life cycle, cut one system's life short and have its new one come out so soon. Okay, when you get into Sega in the 90s, it's a little bit messy. I know a lot of today's younger gamers aren't really familiar with that time, but we had the Genesis, the CD, the 32X, the Nomad, the Saturn, and the Dreamcast all just doing their own crazy shit, their own crazy thing. Like, Sega really kind of went nuts for a while. So that sort of is precedence in a way. But the way the console war happened back then compared to compared to the way it happens today is, I think, different enough that I feel we've had such a comfortable structure of the three guys releasing their systems in tandem within a year of each other consistently, and they all have the same sort of window of lifespan before the next generation starts. So it's been very easy to define what lines dictate the 6th generation, the 7th generation, and now the 8th generation. And now we have the Nintendo NX coming out very soon. It's going to be releasing only in the 3rd year of its competition's life cycle. And so is that going to change the way the generations are looked at and defined? I mean, I have to think no. I've really thought hard about this because I wasn't quite sure what answer to come up with. It's really difficult to assume, you know? And the reason I want to say that no, I don't think it's going to be considered a 9th generation console, it kind of goes against previous thinking I've had, because to me, a generation of a console's life cycle should be dictated by when a next console is released. So, like, when the Wii U came out, some people wanted to make this crazy BS argument that it wasn't an 8th generation console. Because for some of them, they didn't feel like it had the power to qualify as an 8th generation console, which, by the way, it completely does. And even if it didn't, it sort of wouldn't matter, because a generation is more based on time than it is on power or evolution. You know, a little bit it's based on those things, power and evolution, but I think a huge factor is really the time. I mean, by definition, a generation is 25 years. It is a measurement of time. That is the definition of a generation. So it's silly to think that, a system, because of its innards, because of the architecture of the box, maybe doesn't qualify as a generation. Well, really, if it's the next in line based on a previous model, it is a new generation. So I've always felt that way, and I felt that way with the Wii U. We all know that the Wii U is the 8th generation, is Nintendo's 8th generation machine. PlayStation 4 is Sony's, and Xbox One is Microsoft's. So we're in the 8th generation. Those are our 3 consoles currently. Now, when it comes to the NX releasing, this is why it took me so long to make this video, is because I think I have to decide that, just for me personally, I have to sort of set my personal philosophy aside, because I feel that I'm going to consider the Nintendo NX, if it truly launches next year, very likely going to still be an 8th generation machine. And I think the real reason is because I see the PS4 and the Xbox One having a pretty long life. And there's been a lot of back and forth on that. You know, Sony and Microsoft were saying before they even announced their systems at their next platforms, they wanted to have a 10-year life cycle. And that sounded really good to a lot of us, because it meant we didn't have to, shell out another $400 or $500 after a couple of years. And it meant that we could, coming off of the 7th generation, where all of those consoles had very long life cycles, especially the Xbox 360, which had a 9-year life cycle. That's insane. So, we had almost 10 years there, and 8 years with the PS3 and sort of kind of the Wii there a little bit. That's a long generation, the longest we've ever had. So you'd have to think that when Sony and Microsoft said we want our next generation to carry on for a decade, we believed it, and it sounded pretty good. And then, leading into the systems launching and the reception and people's feelings about the ability of the machines and the architecture and the way the games have turned out and how many games we've seen, which really hasn't been that many. Some people said, man, there's no way that the PlayStation 4, Xbox One could even sustain a 10-year life cycle. And I agree with that. I think it absolutely cannot sustain a 10-year life cycle, those machines. That being said, I do think they can still sustain a pretty long life cycle. I think we're going to get 6 or 7 years out of these machines. And by the time 2016 rolls around, and we're getting to November 2016, if let's say that's when the Nintendo NX launches in November 2016, that is the exact 3-year anniversary of the PS4 and the Xbox One. And those things, I think, are going to have another 4 years in them, if at least, probably another 4 years. So there's no reason to think that a system launching halfway or less than halfway into the life of its competition is going to qualify as that next generation, that 9th generation. I think we know that Sony and Microsoft are going to push for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to last that long. And to be fair, part of why I think that they will last a long time is because the sales are really good. Right now, the PS4 is outpacing the PlayStation 2, which is insane. It's insane to me that that's happening. It's not like a bad thing per se, because I do really enjoy my PlayStation 4, and I'm actually playing it more and more nowadays than ever, even though I don't think it has the best library overall. It's a lot of fun, it's a good machine, and there are some games to play, and we know that by that time, there's going to be more and more games to play. So, you know, there's going to be a library that's going to make sense on the PlayStation 4 eventually. It's taking longer than it should, but whatever. That being said, it's still selling so well. It's selling so well. It's over 25 million units now as of like a week or two ago. That's crazy, and it's awesome success for Sony and the PlayStation. And the Xbox One is at, 13 million or so. Wii U just passed 10 million, so congrats to Wii U. I'm very proud of that. Xbox One's at 13 million, also doing very well. There's no reason to think that that's considered a failure by any stretch. It just happens to be that the PlayStation 4 is selling astronomically, unbelievably well. Better than anyone, including Sony, ever could have imagined or hoped for. So I'm telling you guys, as long as the systems are selling, there is not going to be incentive to make new machines. Well, okay, that's not true. Eventually, the incentive will be from the developers who are needing to get more and more out of the hardware. And I think that Sony and Microsoft and maybe even Nintendo can really hold them back for a period, saying we don't need to make new hardware. Our systems are doing too well for us to spend that money to do that. So you need to find a way to make your games work on our systems. And to be fair, the developers will do that because they need places to put their games. People aren't going to buy their games if they don't exist, and they need a platform to put them on. So there's going to sort of be a give and take there going for a while. And I think that for a good period, if the sales stay strong, that Sony and Microsoft, excuse me, man, I can't breathe today, apparently. Sony and Microsoft will be able to stave off the push from developers to make new hardware. I think that they will be able to hold that off for a couple of years. So if the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One really maintain a life cycle that goes to 2019 or 2020, and we have Nintendo's next system launching in 2016, we have to imagine what it's going to be like in 2020 if the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the Nintendo NX are the three relevant consoles still. We will have been 4 years into that Nintendo NX life cycle, and at that time, there would be no reason to think after 4 years that we're looking at an 8th generation PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and a 9th generation Nintendo NX. Like, no, we will merge those systems. They will become one unified generation. They will all remain part of the 8th generation. Now, the argument obviously exists that it will be Nintendo's 9th generation system. And that will be 100% true. And how we will use that to sort of define the generations and have that conversation in a couple of years down the road, man, I just don't know. And I feel like that conversation, I feel like we might have some people who are trying to make a case throughout the life of the NX and, this 8th generation that Nintendo is on the 9th generation and the other two guys are behind. I think that we'll probably have people who are really pushing forward that message. And, I mean, if that's the case, more power to you. I guess it's just going to really depend on what the NX is actually capable of and what it looks like, what it does, what the games are like, what the interface is like, what the controller's like, how the visuals look. I mean, if it turns out to be astronomically better than the PS4 and Xbox One, which I don't think it will at all, but let's say it was. Let's say it was like twice as powerful as the PlayStation 4, then it would probably have to be considered 9th generation because you're looking at both time in the sense that it's the newest machine from a console developer, building off of their 8th generation machine, and the fact that the power itself does qualify to be a next generation, an evolutionary leap on top of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I feel like you could make a case for that. But again, that's not going to happen. Like, we know that's not going to happen. Nintendo's machine, I really think it probably will end up being more powerful than the PS4 and Xbox One. Some people think that it won't be. There's rumors that it wouldn't be. And, I mean, I just don't think that's going to be the case. It may not be a huge leap, which is too bad because I think it should be a huge leap. But it's probably going to be a little bit more powerful. And we know that that's what they're going to do, and that's going to be fine. Assuming that's the case, assuming it's on par with the PS4 and Xbox One or even slightly better, and assuming it launches next year in 2016, and assuming that the Xbox One and PS4 really do get a very long life cycle out of those machines, I think that the NX is going to have to be considered 8th generation, and I don't think it will change the definition of generations. Yes, there's a lot of assumptions we're going on there, but that's all we have. That's all I have to go on. So yes, I'm assuming this and assuming this and assuming that, but we have no hard evidence. That's the purpose of the theory. That's why it's a Rob theory, is I'm theorizing on how it could all play out. I do think that when the NX initially launches, there's going to be a lot of conversation for a good many couple of months on how the generations are looked at and defined, and what does it mean that Nintendo's machine came so early, that their 9th generation machine came so early, and the other two 8th generation machines still have a long life ahead of them. We're going to talk about that, I think, for a while, but eventually that conversation will go away. And I think within a year, especially coming up to the NX's first holiday, like 1 year anniversary, that following holiday 2017 and whatever big titles are coming out then, we're not going to be talking about the generation definition. I think we will have kind of gotten over it at that time. We'll be settling into the simple fact that it's still going to be an 8th generation machine. And I think it's too bad, actually. I don't love the fact that I have to look at it that way, or that's the way I'm looking at it, I should say. But that's what's going to happen if Nintendo launches this damn system so early. I think 2016 is too long. I wish that they were sticking and dedicating to the Wii U and finding a way to make it successful. Keep making great games. Get a couple third-party games on board again. Keep doing that. You've gotten a couple great third-party games. You can keep doing that. And, keep making your own stuff for it. But they're not doing that. We know that they're making Metroid for the NX. We know that Zelda's probably going to launch on the NX. We can all just sort of sit back and acknowledge the unfortunate fact that that's probably what's going on. And, just let it be what it is and just kind of see how it all plays out. And it's too bad for the Wii U, man, because I love the Wii U. I think the Wii U could have another good year or two in it easily if it was being supported properly. But it's not going to be supported properly. The 2016 is probably going to be very barren for the system, minus just a couple games. And, once the NX is officially showed and announced and revealed to be coming out in 2016, then no one's going to care about the Wii U, and it's going to be really, really unfortunate. Unless the NX is some sort of platform or model, like a business model that allows for the Wii U to still exist as relevant hardware. And I don't even have any idea how that could play out. That's the only sort of idea I've had dancing around in my head of how the Wii U could stay around. And since we don't know about the NX, what if that's the case? What if it's meant to continue the life of the Wii U in some way? Which would actually be, this is going to sound so counterproductive, kind of disappointing, to tell you the truth. If Nintendo's working on their next platform, I don't want them to half-ass it and find it to be a half-assed way to make their old platform last a little bit longer. If they're gonna do this NX thing and they're gonna do a new machine, you go 100%. That's the thing. In a perfect world, don't even make it yet. Give the Wii U 2 years. You're not gonna do that? Okay, then make a good flippin' machine. Just make your next actual machine 100% dedication and devotion to that. You could argue that half-assing it or phoning it in might even be why the Wii U didn't quite live up to people's expectations. So you can't do that again. So the NX can't be something that sort of is building on the Wii U. Like, it needs to be a brand new, from the ground up machine. It needs to be what they are considering internally a 9th generation machine, even though I think that within the realm of the industry, it will be an 8th generation machine. But if Nintendo needs to treat it like their next big hot shit 9th generation machine, that's what they need to do. But now we're getting into rumors about the NX, and that's not the purpose of this video, so I'm going to cut myself off right there before I tangent for another 5 minutes on you guys. But that's it. I think it's a pretty interesting topic and a pretty interesting conversation to have. And man, you've heard what I can possibly theorize about it, but I super want to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think if the Nintendo NX launches in 2016, whether it launches in spring or summer or holiday or whatever time period, if it's 2016 when this machine comes out, what do you guys think that means for the generation definitions, Some may argue that this doesn't matter and it's not important, and I mean, that's kind of true. You're not wrong, but I think that it's still interesting. That's why I'm talking about this. I don't think it's going to be some sort of industry-defining move where it's like, how do we define the generations? And it's the generations that really dictate what's happening in the industry and blah, blah, blah. Like, really, that's not true. And I'm not trying to say it is, but I do think that it's a conversation people will begin to have. And I think that it's interesting, and I think it holds some merit. I don't think it's a worthless thing to decide and to sort of figure out. I really want to know how the generations will be talked about and defined based on the NX when it launches next year, if that's when it truly launches, so I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think it's important? Maybe you don't think it's important. Do you think that it will change the generation definition to 9th generation, or do you think that the 8th generation will continue? Do you think the NX will be considered 8th gen or 9th gen? I mean, what do you think? Or do you think that the generation definition may even go away entirely? I mean, I didn't even really touch on that topic. What if this puts in motion the movement to basically no longer define things by generations. I don't really think that would happen, but what if it does happen? So, you guys share your thoughts. I really want to hear and see where people come down on which sides of this discussion, 8th generation, 9th generation, Nintendo NX, Wii U, PS4, what do you guys think? So, that's pretty much it. I want to give one last shout out to my man Jeff for the brand new title card intro. I super appreciate it. Thanks again, buddy. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love doing these Rob Theory videos. It's been a while, so it's fun to come back and do this. I always appreciate you guys watching. Again, my name is Rob from Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you guys next time on another video.